Ever feel overwhelmed by your feed, constantly comparing yourself or getting sucked into endless scrolling? One moment you open an app for a quick glance, and suddenly an hour disappears, leaving you with an uneasy feeling you can't quite explain. What if I told you that this struggle isn't just modern, that the anxieties we feel in the digital world have echoes in the past? What if an ancient philosophy over 2,000 years old held the key to reclaiming your peace of mind in this chaotic digital arena? Social media promises connection, entertainment, and a voice in the global conversation. Yet so often it leaves us drained, comparing ourselves to others, and caught in loops we didn't choose. If you've ever felt your joy stolen by endless scrolling, or your time consumed by chasing likes, comments, and followers, this message is for you. Together we'll explore Stoicism, a timeless wisdom that offers not just theory, but practical tools for building resilience, managing expectations, and rediscovering contentment in the age of algorithms. Let's begin by acknowledging something important. The never-ending scroll is not neutral. Every swipe, every click, every refresh is designed to pull us deeper, shaping our moods and even our sense of self-worth. The result? A constant tug-of-war for our attention and our peace of mind. Ancient Stoic philosophers may not have known what a notification was, but they knew all too well the dangers of distraction, comparison, and chasing external approval. Take Seneca, for example, a Roman philosopher who lived nearly 2,000 years ago. He looked at the world around him and asked, "Why do we let others dictate the state of our mind? Why do we hand over our peace to things beyond our control?" His writings remind us that while we cannot command the world, we can command our response to it. So here's the question to hold in your mind. Could Stoicism be the lifeline we need to navigate this modern storm of digital noise? Could the same philosophy that guided emperors, soldiers, and citizens in ancient Rome also guide us through the traps of comparison, endless scrolling, and digital burnout? As we continue, we'll walk through practical strategies rooted in Stoic thought that you can apply directly to your online life. We'll examine how to deal with external opinions, how to filter the chaos, how to build discipline and moderation, and ultimately, how to reclaim your inner peace, even as the digital world swirls around you. By the end, you may begin to see social media differently, not as an enemy to escape, but as a tool, something you can engage with intentionally without letting it rule over you. And so, let's step forward into the next lesson, where we'll explore how the Stoics teach us to see external opinions, and why this matters more than ever when it comes to likes, comments, and the validation game that shapes today's digital world. In a world shaped by likes, comments, and endless metrics of approval, it's easy to let our sense of worth be dictated by numbers on a screen. The Stoics understood this dynamic long before the age of algorithms. They asked, why should the opinion of others decide the state of our mind? Seneca wrote that external impressions, what people say, what they think, what they applaud or condemn, are never truly under our control. And yet, how often do we hand over our peace by chasing after them? In the digital space, this happens almost invisibly. A single post without enough likes feels like rejection. A comment with criticism lingers longer than 100 with praise. Suddenly, our happiness is no longer our own, It belongs to the shifting winds of other people's reactions. The Stoics remind us of a simple but powerful truth. What others think, what others say, and how others respond are not within our control. And if they are not within our control, then they must not be the foundation of our peace. Think about it. When you post a picture, share an idea, or leave a thought online, the reaction it receives depends on countless factors: timing, algorithms, mood of the viewers, even luck. To tie your joy to those unpredictable outcomes is to chain your inner life to forces you can never master. This is why the Stoics urge us to shift the focus inward. Instead of seeking external validation, they encourage us to cultivate internal virtue, our character, our choices, our sense of self-worth. Imagine for a moment that the number of likes on your post disappears. Would your message still hold meaning to you? Would you still find value in sharing it? If the answer is yes, then you've already touched on a Stoic principle. True worth is not measured by applause, but by authenticity. When you free yourself from the trap of external opinions, you begin to reclaim something precious: your independence of mind. You learn to post not for validation, but for expression. You scroll not to compare, but to connect. And slowly, you stop being a prisoner of shifting impressions and start becoming the master of your own peace. This shift does not happen overnight. It takes practice to notice when you're caught in the net of comparison, when your mood rises and falls with metrics on a screen. But every time you remember this truth, that external impressions belong to others, while your response belongs to you, you strengthen the muscle of resilience. The digital world will always offer likes and comments, praise and criticism. But the Stoic asks, why surrender the steering wheel of your soul to anyone else? And so, as we continue, let's move deeper into Stoic practice. The next step is learning to filter the endless impressions that flood our digital lives, to pause before reacting, to question what enters our mind, and to choose what we assent to. This is where the discipline of assent becomes a powerful tool, one that can transform not just how you use social media, but how you see the world itself. If we do not wish to surrender the steering wheel of our soul, then we must learn a deeper skill, the art of choosing which impressions we allow to guide us. The Stoics called this the discipline of assent. It is the practice of recognizing that every impression that enters the mind, a thought, an image, a headline, a comment, does not automatically deserve our agreement. We can pause, we can question, we can choose whether to let it pass or allow it to take root. Think of how many impressions pass through you in a single day online: a photo of someone's perfect life, a controversial statement that sparks outrage, a headline designed to stir fear. Without even realizing it, your heart rate changes, your mood shifts, and your mind reacts as if each impression were unquestionable truth. But the Stoics remind us the impression itself is not the problem. The problem lies in the assent, in the unexamined acceptance of what we see and hear. Epictetus, another Stoic teacher, said, "It is not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them." Imagine that for a moment in the digital world. A post cannot disturb you. A comment cannot wound you. A headline cannot steal your peace unless you assent, unless you grant it the power to do so. So the practice begins with a pause. The next time you see something that stirs emotion, stop for a breath. Ask yourself, is this true? Is this helpful? Is this necessary? If the answer is no, then you have your answer. The impression may have reached you, but it need not rule you. Consider outrage bait, the endless cycle of posts designed to provoke anger. They thrive on reaction. Every comment, every share, every burst of indignation is fuel to keep the fire alive. But if you refuse assent, the fire begins to starve. By choosing not to engage, not to feed what is unworthy of your attention, you protect your mind and your peace. Or think of misinformation, claims spread without care for truth. To assent without questioning is to become part of the problem, multiplying confusion. But to pause, to ask, to withhold judgment until certainty appears, that is the Stoic way. In doing so, you become a guardian of clarity in a world that desperately needs it. This discipline applies not only to negativity, but also to praise. When your post receives more likes than usual, it feels good. The surge of dopamine tells you that you matter. But remember, this too is an impression. To assent too strongly to praise is to build your self-worth on shifting sand. What happens tomorrow when the likes do not come? When you feel less valuable? The Stoics urge us to remember, neither criticism nor praise defines who we are. Both are external impressions, and neither belongs to the core of our character. Pause here for a moment. Reflect on your own habits. How often do you let a single comment ruin your day? How often do you let a number on a screen decide whether you're doing enough? How often do you give assent without realizing it? The beauty of this practice is that every moment offers a chance to begin again. You don't need to withdraw from the digital world entirely. You don't need to stop posting, scrolling, or engaging. You only need to remember that you are the gatekeeper of your mind. No impression enters without your permission, and in that choice lies freedom. The discipline of assent is like building a filter for your soul. It does not block out the world. It allows you to let the right things through. Truth, beauty, kindness, wisdom, these can pass. Noise, anger, falsehood, comparison, these can be left outside the gate. And as you strengthen this filter, you begin to notice something powerful. The digital storm no longer dictates your state. The anger of others no longer stirs your peace. The highs and lows of external reactions no longer own you. You have begun to choose your digital reality, not by changing the world around you, but by changing the way you respond within. This is the discipline of assent, a quiet power, a daily practice, a reminder that not everything deserves your attention, your reaction, or your belief. And once you have learned to filter what enters, the next step becomes clear. It is not only about what you allow through, but how much you consume. Because even the good things, when taken without moderation, can overwhelm. Here, the Stoic virtue of temperance becomes our guide, teaching us how to live with balance, even in a world that never stops calling for more. If filtering impressions teaches us to guard the gates of our mind, then temperance teaches us how to live with balance once the gates are open. Because even when the content is good, when it is truthful, uplifting, or inspiring, too much of it can still overwhelm the soul. The Stoics understood this deeply. They taught that excess, even in what appears pleasant, eventually becomes a burden. Seneca often warned against indulgence without limits. To him, moderation was not about denial, but about freedom. When pleasure controls us, we are no longer free. And in the digital age, the constant stream of updates, notifications, and videos can easily become the chains we cannot see. Think for a moment about the hours lost to scrolling. At first, it feels harmless, 10 minutes here, 15 minutes there. But added together, those minutes can stretch into hours. Hours that could have been spent in reflection, in conversation, in rest. Hours that could have been used to strengthen the mind or care for the body. This is the quiet danger of excess. It steals from us not with force, but with distraction. The Stoic answer is temperance, the practice of choosing enough. Not too little, not too much, but a balance that allows life to breathe. Applied to the digital world, temperance becomes a kind of digital diet. Just as we set boundaries with food to nourish rather than harm, we set boundaries with our devices to guide rather than enslave. This could mean scheduling times of day to check your feed, instead of living in constant reaction to every vibration of your phone. It could mean turning off notifications that demand your attention but offer nothing of true value. It could mean asking yourself before you open an app, am I seeking something meaningful or am I avoiding the silence? Silence itself is an essential part of temperance. Without moments of stillness, we cannot hear our own thoughts. But in the digital age, silence has become uncomfortable. We fill every pause with scrolling, every moment of waiting with a glance at the screen. The Stoic path invites us to welcome silence again, to see it not as emptiness, but as space for the soul to breathe. Temperance also means detachment, a healthy distance from the stream of information that constantly calls for our attention. It does not mean withdrawal, nor does it mean rejecting the digital world altogether. It means recognizing that the updates will always be there, the feed will always refresh, the stream will never run dry, and so you do not need to consume endlessly to stay whole. When you cultivate temperance, you begin to notice a shift. You feel less urgency when the phone lights up. You feel less pressure to stay updated every minute. You regain the power to step away, to rest, to choose deliberately when and how to engage. This virtue is not just about discipline, it is about joy. For when you learn to limit excess, you also learn to savor more deeply. A single meaningful conversation becomes more fulfilling than an hour of scattered scrolling. One article read with focus teaches more than dozens skimmed in haste. A brief, intentional use of social media can bring connection, while endless use brings only fatigue. So pause and ask yourself, where in your digital life do you need temperance? Is it in the number of hours you spend? In the notifications you allow? In the way you fill every silence? What would moderation look like for you? Temperance reminds us that we do not need more to live well. We need enough. And in this enough, there is peace. And from this peace, we are ready to go even deeper. Because balance in consumption is not the final goal. Beyond moderation lies something greater, the cultivation of inner stillness, the building of tranquility that no storm of noise can shatter. That is where the Stoic journey leads us next, toward inner peace amidst the chaos. From moderation flows peace. When we no longer drown in excess, when we no longer chase every notification or every fleeting impression, We create the space for something greater, the cultivation of inner tranquility. This is where Stoicism truly shines, for its goal was never just survival in a chaotic world, but the building of a mind that remains calm, steady, and whole, even in the midst of storms. Social media will always contain noise. It will always tempt us with comparison, with endless updates, with the illusion that we are missing something vital if we disconnect. But peace is not found by controlling the outside world. It is found by mastering the inside. The Stoics teach us that we must turn inward. Instead of asking, "What do others think of me?" we begin to ask, "What do I think of myself?" Instead of asking, "How do I compare?" we ask, "Am I living according to my values?" The center shifts. The noise remains, but it no longer shakes the foundation. One practical way to cultivate this inner stillness is through reflection. The Stoics often kept journals, recording their thoughts, examining their emotions, questioning their reactions. In our digital world, this practice is more relevant than ever. Imagine ending your day not with a final scroll, but with a few quiet sentences written to yourself. How did I react online today? Did I allow anger to control me? Did I chase approval, or did I act from principle? This gentle practice transforms how we engage with the digital space. It brings awareness to patterns we often miss. It helps us understand why certain posts trigger envy, why certain comments ignite anger, why certain comparisons stir doubt, and with understanding comes freedom. You cannot master what you do not notice. Journaling is the mirror that reveals the hidden chains. Another way to cultivate peace is to use social media intentionally as a tool for connection, for learning, for growth, rather than a stage for endless comparison. Ask yourself, what do I seek when I open this app? Am I here to connect, to share, to discover? Or am I here to escape, to numb, to distract? Intentional use transforms the experience. A tool, once reclaimed, no longer controls the craftsman. And so, slowly, we return to what the Stoics always taught. Peace is not the absence of noise, it is the presence of strength within. You will never silence the entire digital world, but you can build within yourself a stillness that remains untouched, no matter how loud the outside becomes. Pause for a moment and imagine this state. You open your feed, and instead of feeling rushed, you feel calm. You see others' lives, and instead of comparing, you feel grounded in your own. You encounter criticism, and instead of breaking, you remain steady. This is not fantasy. This is the fruit of practice, of assent, of temperance, of reflection, of wisdom. This is the journey the Stoics invite us to walk, not to abandon the world, but to live in it with presence and peace. Not to escape the noise, but to rise above it. Not to reject connection, but to root it in authenticity rather than approval. And as we close this path together, I leave you with a question. In the midst of the digital storm, what kind of person do you want to be? One carried by every wave, or one who sails with calm direction? The choice is yours. The tools are here. The practice begins now. If this reflection has spoken to you, take a moment to share your thoughts. Your voice may help someone else find their way through the same noise. And if you wish to walk further on this path, let us continue together through learning, through reflection, through practice. Like, subscribe, and join me in building a space where wisdom still has a voice in the age of algorithms.